Hard Hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
Hey, Bobby Manning here. Welcome to a breaking news edition of the Garden Report with Noa Dalzell. As Kevin Durant finally moves on the day of Game 7, Noah, which I didn't believe was going to happen. I sent you the radio guy out there in Phoenix saying it might happen today or tomorrow. I was like, it's probably not today. But here we are, Game 7 tonight. But first, Kevin Durant traded to the Rockets.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the offseason has officially started now for the Celtics because it did feel like that was the first domino that had to fall. And kind of unfortunate for the NBA that it happened today. I mean, maybe there's a thought process that, like, okay, more people are going to be engaged to the NBA all day today, but this is obviously a major story, and the story today should just be about Game 7. But major implications, I think, for teams across the league. And I think between today, Sunday afternoon, to Wednesday night when the draft happens, like, I think we're going to see a lot of movement just from teams everywhere.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing here. Like, we get Game 7 of the finals, which is perfect. We get this move out of the way quickly. And now, with the draft 3 days away at this point, things could start moving fast as soon as tomorrow. But we'll start with this trade here. It's Durant going to Houston, going back to Phoenix in just a 2-team deal, according to the reports at this point. I still think there's a chance this could expand since it's not official yet, but we'll get to that in a second. For now, Jalen Green going back to Houston, Dillon Brooks heading to Phoenix, Dillon Brooks to Phoenix as well. The 10th pick in Wednesday's draft, which is what the Phoenix Suns originally traded, among other picks, to Brooklyn for Kevin Durant, and 5 second-round picks, which is unbelievable. The fact that they're only getting 1 first out of this thing. And the Rockets, who had 3 Suns picks, including this number 10 pick at their disposal, only give up 1 of them. So they still own the Suns pick in 2027. They still own a pick swap with Phoenix in 2029. And they're coming out of this with Durant, Şengün, Amen Thompson, all those wings, Jabari Smith, Tari Eason. Who knows where this will go, because there's obviously some questions on Houston's side too. But as of now, as we sit here today, this to me just looks like a massive steal for Houston. And in my mind, cements them as a legitimate championship contender for next year, because I think this is the one piece they were missing, that wing scorer, and they got an all-NBA caliber one to fill that role.
Yeah, and I don't think Jalen Green was a part of their future. Like, I don't think he fit into what they were doing. So
neither of us are high on him.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I wouldn't be stunned if next year, if he is on the Suns and he has the opportunity to, take 20 shots a game, and he put up numbers this past year. Like, he struggled in the playoffs, but I don't think he's going to be like a complete dud next year. But I think it's a good move. The thing that's fascinating though is that it just shows you how much, like, the media game and just the leverage game matters, because I think Durant's value is higher, especially because Houston is going to extend him, right? That's the understanding. So it's not like this is a 1-year rental. But everybody knew that Phoenix wanted to trade him. Everybody knew that they had been shopping him around before the deadline, and therefore he was aware and he was able to kind of shoot down different destinations, whether that was Minnesota or elsewhere. And so he deflated his value. And you think about, like, the Luka deal, and you think about, how Luka had no idea that it was coming. And granted, that was not a good return, but like, you understand why teams keep things so hush-hush, because there's, like, this was a perfect example of what went wrong with when you were broadcasting to the world, you were going to trade this guy most likely before the NBA draft.
Yeah, for sure. And there was a Golden State possibility there before Jimmy Butler, ended there. There could have been a Jimmy Butler, Kevin Durant swap with Miami straight up at the deadline, which I think both of those probably would have fielded a better return. We'll see. I don't know. It all depends on how you feel about Green. And I'm lower on him. I know you're lower on him. It looks like he's going to stay, and they're going to try to recoup some value on him in Phoenix. So I don't know what they're doing. I don't really care. I'm much more intrigued by what Houston's doing here. And Ime Udoka, who just got extended, now gets this monstrous front line. And this is where my mind goes. I don't even care about the picks. And maybe the Suns will get a great player at 10. They haven't been a big draft pick team. But for Houston, still have all these future picks, still have all these players. I mean, they haven't even decided on Fred VanVleet's team option yet. if he comes back, he's another great option for them. And he was leading this offense for a lot of last year and the year before that. Smith, Eason, Thompson, all those guys are still so young, so early in their development. They're going to be great, and they're going to take the pressure off Durant defensively, which I feel like is the biggest weakness at this point in his career. I feel like now he can just focus more on offense with defenders like that everywhere around him. Şengün stays there, who I love, who I think showed great in the playoffs while handling the ball every single time. There's going to take some pressure off him to create offense. And, that was the playoff series we both debated most, Noah, that Golden State, Houston one. I had Houston, you had Golden State. And Houston pushed them. They pushed them as much as they could. All they did was just grind on the offensive glass, try to have Şengün force his way inside. And it actually brought them pretty far there. And Thompson was great in that series too. Green was the one who was all over the place, as you mentioned. And to me, figuring out that point of attack, late game offensive player for them was the only thing missing on this team. And if you were going to stack up the players you would choose to fill that role, even at 37, even at this point in his career, missing some time. And that's the other concern here with Durant is that he's been hurt in a bunch of different seasons, especially with Phoenix. This guy's still up pretty close near the top of players you would want to fill that role right here. And I want to just pull up his numbers again from last season because, I'm one of the biggest Durant advocates now, and maybe I'm overrating him at this point in his career. But 27 points a game, 6 rebounds a game, 4 assists a game, shot 53% from the field, which was even better than the year before, 43 from 3 on 6 attempts. The guy just puts the ball in the basket, especially in the moments in the game where you really need it and things tighten up and you just got to throw it to a guy to get you a bucket. I think he has something left to say in his career. And I know you were tweeting this out recently too. It sucks he's become so maligned. It stinks that fans roll their eyes when they think about him. And maybe his legacy takes a hit in the near term here due to all this bouncing around to different teams, especially if they can't get it done here in Houston, which is probably going to be his last stop, I'd imagine. So I just hope he has something left to say. That's all I really hope here is that this is the situation where he can get back to the finals. Maybe he wins one more championship to really cement his legacy. And all of a sudden the narrative changes on him a little bit because it's just unfortunate a guy who's playing this well this late in his career. We saw what he did in the Olympics too last year. For him to just be known as this Warriors ring chaser who's hurt, who's hopping around to different teams, who really doesn't have a home, it's just such a discredit to who he's actually been as a player. And he's one of my favorite players of all time.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably not going to win a championship with Houston. Just like thinking about.
You don't think so?
Probably not. I mean, it would have to be the next few years. I think there's other teams that I'm a little bit higher on, but they're going to be in the mix, and that's all you can ask for if you're Kevin Durant. That's all you can ask for if you're Houston. I think what I like about this move is that they didn't deplete, like you said, any of their assets to get him. So it's like, I mean, they had a few players, but I think they still have a really strong core around him. Like if you just took that team and took Dillon Brooks out, and Jalen Green out, like I still think that's a competitive team. So I think you have a good core around him. I like that he's still there. I kind of wanted him in the Eastern Conference just because I think the Eastern Conference needs more stars.
Yeah.
And I feel like anytime we see any of these moves, it's just more players, more players moving to the West. And so I kind of liked him in Miami, honestly. I like when Miami's relevant. And I don't really get why they didn't make that deal. I saw that there was a potential offer reported by ESPN by Shams basically saying that it was like Jovic and Jaquez and I forget who the third Wiggins. And they turned that down. And so I thought that I thought that Miami was going to have enough there to make that move. But in any case, I think I'm looking at this through the lens of like, this is going to be another good team next year. They'll probably be a top 2, top 3 seed. I mean, they were top 2 seed this past season. They'll be dangerous in the playoffs. They definitely could use somebody with his experience. So it was a good fit. And I understand why he wanted to go there. It was clear he didn't want to go. I don't know why he didn't want to go to Minnesota, but it makes sense that he would want to go somewhere to a team that hasn't yet had a deep
What was
playoff
Minnesota
run.
offering? Gobert, maybe? That was a weird.
I don't know. I don't know that it was fully reported either.
Yeah, I just don't even know what was possible there. And a couple of those guys could become free agents. That one was always weird to me. I don't even know how he would have fit there, but that's obviously something I guess he declined Minnesota. He didn't want that by the end, right? It was San Antonio, who's the 3rd team on the list, which they could have gotten this done. I feel like they didn't really try that hard. And then you had Toronto lurking around on the outside where players obviously don't want to go as much. So there were some other teams here. this offer was
Yeah.
probably pretty beatable. But like you said, he deflated his value. So who's going to be throwing all their assets on the table for a guy who's 37 on a 1-year deal? I don't know.
And the biggest thing is just the fact that he was on the final year of his contract. Like that's really what it comes down to. It's such a good place to be in as a player that's on the trading block. Like imagine if Jalen, for example, had 1 year left on his contract, and right now, teams were looking to trade for him. Like that's a perfect way to deflate your value, because nobody's going to want to give up any assets for a guy who very well might leave in a year. And I think Durant would easily do that, even if he's made a lot of money in his career. I don't know if the difference would be negligible. So I think that was probably the biggest thing he had going for him. And for him to say, I want San Antonio or Houston, and to get one of those, despite the age, despite the fact that the package wasn't great, like just kind of shows you how situational context matters when it comes to these kinds of moves. And like the Desmond Bane trade, where he has no idea where he's going, he has no say, he has years left on his contract. Like the return there was better, which is it's still kind of wild, even though I understand the factors around it.
Well, there's an implication there too, because the Grizzlies got a 2026 Suns first out of that. And now the Suns have what? Jalen Green, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, not much else. So that's the team that the Grizzlies could swap picks with next year. They must be doing backflips right now. And then again, the Rockets own the Suns pick in 2027, which is the even crazier part of this for me. I want to take a quick break to shout out LinkedIn. And right now over at LinkedIn, it's Sunday, right? You don't have the luxury of clocking out on Sunday if you're a small business owner. Your business is on your mind 24/7. So when you're hiring, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. And that hiring partner is LinkedIn Jobs. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. And LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free. Share it with your network and get qualified candidates so you can manage all in one place. You post your job over on LinkedIn. They have a new feature that can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. Either post your job for free or pay to promote. And promoted jobs get 3 times more qualified candidates. And at the end of the day, the most important thing to your small business is the quality of candidates. And with LinkedIn, you can feel confident you're getting the best. Based on LinkedIn data, 72% of small businesses using LinkedIn say that LinkedIn helps them find higher quality candidates. You can let your network know you're hiring too. Add a hiring frame to your profile picture and get twice the qualified candidates. So find out why more than 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring today. Find your next great hire on LinkedIn and post your job for free at linkedin.com/garden. That's GARDEN. LinkedIn.com/garden to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So continuing the conversation here about Durant, I think what people want to know most obviously here is what this means for the Celtics. So he's obviously staying in the West, Durant. I don't think he's the kind of guy, even if he did go to Miami, that's going to make you say, ooh, look out for Miami, or there's going to be this team you can't surmount in the East if you went to any of those teams. And again, the only East team rumored was the Heat, who I don't think would have had a great roster after even the trade you mentioned was done. I was thinking about that yesterday. So they obviously didn't make too hard of a push for him. I wouldn't have given up Khalil Ware if I was Miami for Durant, as much as I love him. I just don't think they had finals championship aspirations over the next year or two with that roster. So they probably came out of this in a good place, not having done it. Houston, though, to me, championship contenders. So we're stacking up those teams that are potentially in front of the Celtics this year. And I think it adds to the conversation of, are you trying to contend this year? Are you trying to build for the future and have a reset bridge year to the future? And are you considering major trades this week that can get you up into the lottery? And you mentioned the Desmond Bane trade. No, it was like, is this going to open the floodgates for teams throwing around 4, 5, 6 firsts? San Antonio obviously didn't do that, despite all the picks they have here available to them to move for a guy like Durant. Houston had far more to offer than this and still moved pretty restrained. And in the end, it looks like a pretty smart approach to do that. So like I said, after that Bane trade, every deal is different. And so it's not necessarily going to be the case that this is what you would have gotten from Houston. If they were going to go after a guy like Jaylen Brown, they're probably offering more for a younger guy who's signed long-term. But it's also not necessarily the case that you're going to get 5 firsts like Memphis did for Bane for Brown, just because Brown's a better player. You need a team to actually be interested in him, White, some of these other guys that could get you more off Boston's roster here, who I think people are most interested in seeing whether they're going to move or not. And right now, just based off the reporting that's out there, maybe this is good for Boston, maybe it's not. There's just no buzz around Jaylen Brown right now. And I said it to you earlier. I still think there's a path to Houston getting something like that done if they really want to go all in around like 3-4 stars and have very little depth. I would bet against that at this point. So you can probably rule Houston out of a Jaylen Brown race, sweepstakes, whatever you want to call it here. But it does leave San Antonio with all their assets available. Does leave some sleeper teams we're maybe not even thinking about now. And for those teams, Durant's off the table. So potentially the next best player that's available to teams around the NBA if they want to make a move for a star is Jaylen Brown. But from everything we've read, everything we've heard, they're going to have to be blown away to do that. You're muted.
I think the way I was looking at this trade is that, if wherever Durant lands, that's one less team that's going to be in the conversation for a potential Jaylen Brown landing spot. I think you look at San Antonio, they definitely need a wing. It makes a lot of sense. I was seeing some Spurs reporters talking about how the Suns will probably draft a big, and therefore that kind of moves them up in the draft as it relates to them getting a wing, and that's a good thing. So I think he would be a good fit there. I don't know what they'd be willing to give up. I don't know how real the Celtics' desire to part ways with one of their key players is. I know we've been discussing this all summer, and I honestly can't wait till this time next week till we probably have answers on some of these things. I don't think we really have much new insight. But I don't know that the lack of chatter or the chatter, the lack of chatter around his status league-wide means anything, because we already know that this team keeps everything in-house and there's not going to be any leaks. There's not going to be any discussion around him, potential packages, things like that. You see what happens, right? The only reporting right now that's been around Jaylen Brown is Sham saying that it's going to take a ridiculous offer to acquire him or Derrick White. That's great for the Celtics, right? That shows that they're not desperate. You better not waste their time with bad offers, and that they're very comfortable holding on to those guys. And there's a good chance to hold on to those guys. So they have all the leverage in the world. And I think once you start being desperate, or you're starting to discuss specific packages, and the player gets wind of it, and that's when you start to see negotiations go downhill. So there are a lot of places where he could still land, but Houston was one of those potential fits. And I think that there was a discussion, Ime and reuniting those guys, and they have I think he fits their identity a little bit, but I don't think that's going to be in the future anymore.
Yeah, this is probably a better fit for Houston than Brown would have been. I think the thing that's still so interesting for me with Brown is that, and we talked about it on the last live show we did, is that for a team that's giving up a ton to get him, he's sliding into that role as the guy who's running the offense, point of attack, late game shots, all that stuff. And he's done that stuff in moments in his career, but for the most part, he's played alongside Jason Tatum, who's handled that responsibility. So I do think that complicates trying to get a ton for a guy like that. And even the contract and some of the other factors that make it difficult to pull off trades for guys like this, that just to me, alongside the fact that I think you should keep Brown, makes me think he's going to be here this offseason. We're talking about maybe one suitor who I think there's all the cases in the world for them to be patient, take a guy number 2, lean into the fact that Victor Wembanyama is young and coming off this blood clot here, and the fact that you have De'Aaron Fox, tons of picks into the future, flexibility. I don't think they have to act desperately or urgently. And, when I've imagined a package that could get Brown from Boston, even feasibly, it'd be number 2. It'd be Stephen Castle, a guy I don't think they have any interest moving. Devin Vassell. And yeah, I think that could maybe excite some Celtics fans if that was coming back for Brown, just given what it looks like on paper, but you don't know what it's actually going to look like this year and next to Jason Tatum and into the future. So the Brown discussion is still so complicated, because the reality is it's tough to build a team around 2 guys who make the money that Brown and Tatum do here. And it's tough to get back a ton of value for everyone else on the Celtics, except maybe Derrick White, who I know you've been stressing is maybe the guy that actually could move this summer just because of how valuable he is. But I don't think, despite how great he is and how valuable you would think he'd be on the open market and his age, which is still relatively young, that you're going to get a ton back for Brown. If I had a guess just here, not knowing anything, I don't think number 2 would be on the table for Brown from San Antonio. I don't think Castle would be on the table from San Antonio. So if we're talking about like 14, Vassell and Keldon Johnson, I don't think I'm doing that for Jaylen.
Yeah, and I think honestly, I know the Spurs have been really active in their team has been kind of in the mix for a lot of these stars, potential fits. I actually wouldn't trade my assets because the oldest guy in your core is De'Aaron Fox, who's 27. So he's very much in his prime. And I think I would rather build on Wemby's timeline and kind of get those young pieces around and see how that goes for one full season, because honestly, you haven't really had that opportunity yet. Like that's why they have the number 2 pick this year, is because they really haven't been able to see what their full team healthy looks like. So I'm gonna say, I mean, I don't know how desperate San Antonio is for a star. Well, I guess we'll see depending on what happens here in the coming weeks. But
Maybe they don't need a
it's not
star.
like it's not like they're in a predicament where it's like, okay, this is the year they have to go all out. Like they're so young, and they have so many promising young pieces. So I don't really get it. I don't get where it comes from. And I get it. They need a wing. Like that's clearly what the roster is missing, and therefore Jaylen it comes to mind because of the Celtics, strange financial situation and Tatum's injury and everything. But if I had to guess right now, like I don't think that move makes the most sense for San Antonio to give up like real assets, because I don't think the Celtics are going to do it for a hot mosh posh of like middle tier assets.
I mentioned it to you before. Maybe they don't need a star in San Antonio. Maybe they need a connector. Maybe they need a guy who can bring everything together. And we know what Derrick White looks like there. He knows all those guys. They could offer a lot for him. So that's one I think about. And I know you've been thinking about White potentially moving this summer as well if they're blown away from him. And what is that? Some Hawks picks.
Yeah.
28 coming back to you, which is important. If the Celtics and Spurs are going to come together on a trade here, the fact that they own your 28 pick and it's a pick swap, obviously, from that White trade in 2022, you could get that back with additional stuff as well. And, I know you're not always thinking like, oh, let's put the guy in the best place possible and make him happy. But if you were going to make a very tough decision to trade Derrick White, that probably would be the team where he'd be least bummed and devastated about going to, because he knows a lot of those guys. He knows the coach who he played for in the G League, and Pop's still there and all that, and he lived there with his family. So I think there would be some censor on all. Now, what are you getting back for him? Is that Vassell and all the other stuff we talked about there? Is that enough for White? I don't know. White's such a tough discussion for me, because by the time Tatum gets back, who knows where White's at in his career by then. I think he'll still be a very good player, but is he still essential to what this team's doing 2 years from now? I don't know. And then you have the whole holiday component.
I have to say, this whole thing about Derrick White being old when Tatum gets back, I don't really get it. Like I've heard so
30?
many. He's 30. He'll be. I mean, Tatum will be back in a year to a year and a half, right? Like I feel like we're aging him by 2 years. Tatum will be back in a year.
You don't. So Colin Horford old, so you definitely don't like people calling.
I mean, I just think it doesn't match. Like we see players around the league. Like we're talking about Kevin Durant, who's 37. Like
your prime's usually from what, 27 to 32.
I mean, it depends. It depends on if you're healthy. It depends on like LeBron's prime didn't end when he was 32, right? Like
yeah.
it depends on the guys. And again, I'm not in the training room. I don't know his exact health status, but
his teeth have been beat up a bit.
He's one of the healthiest guys in the roster as far as like injuries and battling with things. And he's played a ton of minutes in recent years. So I think that everybody's like general health this past year was probably a little bit worse than it otherwise would have been. Like I expect Jrue Holiday to have a healthier year next year. Jalen, because like just the finals run after finals run, I think it's going to be, it took a toll on everybody, but Derrick was very, very, dependable through that. He didn't really deal with much. Like, I'm not saying you have to keep him and he has to be part of the future. I understand the pros and cons of it, but like, I keep hearing people talk about Derrick, like he's going to age 7 years by the time that Tatum gets back. And I don't really get where that comes from, because I expect him to be really good for many more years. And it's not like, at least, I mean, with Jalen, I understand like there's a knee situation. So I understand like there's at least a question about that, because that has been something that's hurt players in their careers, but Derrick doesn't even have anything. So it just feels a little bit, I don't know. So I think that he can very well be part of the future. If they offload him, it's because they think to themselves, we have to retool this roster. It doesn't make sense to bring everybody back. And we shopped everybody around, and this was by far the most value that we could get back. So I don't think it'll be a reflection on like thinking that he would be too old or not a good fit by the time Tatum gets back.
It's a fair point. I think, yeah, the case with him is that you might potentially get blown away a la Mikal Bridges kind of return here. And the Spurs are capable of offering that. The Warriors, to me, are interesting in that regard. And frankly, there's no team around the league that I don't think would not consider White. And so
Yeah,
that
that's
puts
the
him in a
thing.
unique position. Because Brown's better than White. Brown's more capable of filling into a star role than White, although White has scored 20, 30, sometimes 30, 40 points in a game in his career. But he's what, $25 million cheaper per year with a couple years left on his deal. You mentioned it, no injury right now as well. So there is a world, even though he's not necessarily a better player on the surface, on paper, that there's much more out there, much more interest in a guy like Derrick White than a guy like Jaylen Brown, who you have to move the earth for, give up everything you have, match his salary, and then pay him $50 million a year and build a team around that. Plus, when we talk about Jaylen sliding into a role he's never really played in his career, Derrick's going to any team and doing the same exact stuff he's done here, and you know what he's going to do in those spots. So,
yeah. I mean, there's a question around how much of Derrick's offensive value has been the result of like playing with so
Tatum
many
and Brown.
players. Yeah, like I mean, I think I'm curious about what that'll be for Pritchard next year. For if Al comes back, like does he get those open threes? I don't know. So there's a question still. There's always a question with switching scenarios and switching roles and things. But at the end of the day, like I do think Derrick can quite literally fit on all 30 teams. So there's probably a much bigger pool of potential landing spots for Derrick White, but for Jaylen, I think there's a better chance that one team will get kind of so tempted by his ceiling and by the prospect of like, what if he can be the number one guy? He is a Finals MVP. There's not a lot of players with his resume that are available potentially, even if he is available. So I would just say like I think that there's a possibility that one team would come in with an offer rather than like the Celtics are going to be comparing 5 great Jaylen Brown offers the way that they might have for Derrick. But again, we're talking about those two guys because I think those two guys would have the biggest impact on the franchise if they left because they are so central to what they've done. But it's still more likely that Drew Holiday or Kristaps Porzingis get dealt in the coming days. And I actually would expect one of those two guys to move between now and the draft. Like if I had to pick one player, I think it's one of those two still. So it's like they're the less interesting conversation because I think we've all known that for a while, but that's still the direction that I think is most feasible.
Well, it's going to be interesting, and I want to take a quick break here to shout out Prize Picks, but there is a Drew implication here too that I think people missed yesterday, so I want to talk about that before we get on to some final stuff and wrap this up here. But I wanted to shout out first with a big championship game here tonight that's going to decide the championship first since 2016, Noah? Game 7 for the championship.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be awesome, and it's the final chance, of course, this season to go over and play Prize Picks from a basketball standpoint here. And there's still baseball. There's still a lot of stuff going on over the summer, but this is a great night if you haven't used Prize Picks before to go over there and pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. And per usual, since Prize Picks is such a great experience, they're giving you great assets like a free SGA square tonight. I'm going to throw this up right now. Yes, 0.5 points. That's all you need from Shea. And I normally like going more on Shea anyway, because he's going to score 30 pretty much in every game. So that's available to you right now, and you don't even need that. You could throw in another Shea square for what he's normally going to be projected at from scoring standpoint. You could go with Halliburton if you're feeling good about that. I've been nervous to do that with the injury here. But that's the fun debate you can have over on Prize Picks with your friends and play for a chance to win again up to 2,000 times your cash over there. There's only one series left in the playoffs and the championship's on the line tonight. So time is running out for you to put your final takes to the test on Prize Picks, the best place to cash in on your favorite sports. So go over there, pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, and you have your daily fantasy sports lineup. That's how they've made daily fantasy sports accessible over there. You can mix and match player projections from different sports. There's some baseball action certainly going on today. Hockey's over, but esports and much more still available over on Prize Picks. And when you go over there and use the code CLNS, play $5 and get 50 instantly over there. So if you haven't used the app tonight, go over there, download it tonight, get 50 instantly for the final championship game on deck tonight, 8 o'clock. And again, you'll get a 50 bonus instantly when you play a $5 lineup. You don't even need a win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So use code CLNS. And again, that's how you let them know we sent you over there. So check it out. Prize Picks, run your game, CLNS, play 5, get 50 instantly. So I mentioned this to you earlier, Noah. Zach Lowe was talking on his podcast about Drew Holiday, and that's been the player I think everybody assumes is most likely to move here from the Celtics. And as we awaited this Durant thing, and I threw some trades together, and I'm starting to think about what this would look like, there was a chance that this could have been like a 3, 4, 5 team deal with players moving in every direction. And I still think we'll see stuff like that this summer. But as of now, this just looks like a 2-team deal, a relatively simple deal between the Rockets and Suns. And so they didn't need facilitators. This money's going to match, but I guess it's not going to match until July 6th because Green's on the rookie extension and you can't trade that in season and all the rest. So I'm interested in what's going to happen with Drew now because I don't think he's going to be involved in this Durant trade inevitably here. Houston was looking out for Celtics players. At one point, there was a report out there about that. I don't think it's going to be Drew at this point, given where their roster's at now. We've mentioned Dallas. We've mentioned the Clippers. We've mentioned a couple of teams out there. But I think you run into the same challenges with all those trades is that you're taking a ton of money back. Maybe you have to move off a pick to make a team take on a 3-year, $100 million deal here. I know we mentioned that the team doesn't necessarily want to do that. And this is why we end up discussing Brown and White, even though no one wants to trade those guys, and maybe they shouldn't trade those guys. Because when it comes to moving Holiday, when it comes to moving Porzingis, even though those are the more likelier scenarios for the Celtics here and the easier moves to make, potentially, just from getting off those kind of contracts and making the kind of salary reductions they need to make here, I don't think you're getting a ton back for them. So I still have my eye on Dallas with Drew this week. I like what Dallas could potentially send back in terms of players. Maybe you have to reroute one of those guys to a third team to actually save some money on that. But if you're a Celtics fan right now and you're hoping to actually get a good player back, maybe even a small pick, I think Dallas is the team because they need guard help. They have a bunch of flexibility in the forward department there. But they have some stuff to sort out too because Cooper Flag's coming in on $13 million now, and they're pretty tight up against that apron. Clippers, same deal here. I know they were in on Durant a little bit too. So this might get the ball moving on a Holiday trade here, but I still don't know what it's actually going to look like because I think it's just tough to move a guy who's there. Can I call him old?
I mean, he will be by the end of his contract.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
tough to move a guy like that.
Yeah, I think what people forget is that this past playoff run, when Drew Holiday was out, this team really, really missed him, and
they're gonna miss him this year without him.
And I think that's a perfect example though that he has strong value at this point still as a standalone player, right? Like he's not. I'm not talking about his contract. I'm not talking about the years coming in. Right now, if you add him to your roster, you will get a lot better. So. That's remains the reality. Is there going to be a team that is willing to deal with potentially overpaying him in 2 years? I think there will be, and that's why I don't think that they're going to give up picks to offload his contract when he's still a high value player. So if they know they need to get below the second apron, and you're looking at you have Derrick White and you have Drew Holiday in the backcourt, both of those guys making pretty significant money. You have a guy backing them up who's on a really cheap contract that can probably start, or at least you're going to probably give them that chance next year and just see how it goes. One of them is probably going to go, right? And so I think it just depends on, when I said earlier, like Drew, the Drew trade is less interesting. I think it's just the one that everybody expects. Like when he signed that deal, I don't think anybody really saw him finishing out this contract in Boston versus I think Derrick, people thought that he probably would finish the contract in Boston. I think the reality now is that, either of them could go, just depending on what the market is. I know. Drew. I think Drew's trade would happen in the next few days if it does happen. But I don't know that I'm like. I think the Drew thing is like inevitable the way that I used to feel. I think when he first signed that contract and earlier in the season, it just felt like there was no way he was finishing out this deal. I think maybe they get a great package for somebody else and they'd opt to keep him.
Yeah, I think it's possible, especially with the White scenarios we laid out. I don't think you want to completely deplete your backcourt, even if that is what you end up doing down the line. I think in all these scenarios we're talking about here, and I think you agree with me on this, Noah, surprisingly, we agree on this. You go into next year, I think, with the intention of competing. And that's why I think it's important to keep Brown. I think that's why it's important to keep one of Drew or White. Pritchard slides in that other spot, and Pritchard and Holiday probably works as a backcourt if that's the direction you're going next year. Who knows who's going to slide in as backup, but it would help to have Holiday playing next to Pritchard and maintain some defensive flexibility there. I still like the idea of keeping Porzingis. I know that's something we disagree about. I think that you're just
I don't disagree about it. I just think that if you get value back for him, like you have to give somebody up. So
I just don't think
the guy
from what I've looked at, and maybe I'm wrong and they'll get something back for him, but I don't know. I think that's going to be a salary dump if they end up doing it. And I don't think that's the right way to go about that. Al, we mentioned, I think Drew and Tori in our interviews mentioned this week, he's back at the facility. So feels less likely that he's heading for retirement. If he's part of the mix next year, that's a good thing. And I think he helps you stay competitive around Brown. And you'd love to keep Luke as well. And we'll see where that goes. I haven't heard a ton on that front, but this is going to be an interesting week. There's a lot going on here. I know Noah hates talking about the trades, and we're almost to the finish line. So nothing's happened yet, and something is going to happen here at some point. But I think it's probably best that they're going to head into this year, at least to start. And this is what I've stressed, Noah. You could sell everything by the trade deadline if things crash and burn and you're bad at the start of next year and things do not look good without Tatum. Then you can start pivoting toward a longer term reset, rebuild thing here. But to start next year, for everybody's sake, including Tatum's in his recovery, I think you have to try to stay above water. And I think they can, even while losing a player or two off the roster here, if they make some smart moves. It's just tough to imagine what's going to be that really puts them in a good position to compete next year. But we've seen them win without guys in their lineup left and right here. So is that still where you're at going to next year with the intention of trying to compete?
Yeah, definitely. I think people have asked, is it more? I got this question when I did a live stream the other day. Is it more likely that they're going to get a top 5 pick or prioritize winning 50 games? And I do think it's neither. Like, I don't think they're going to tank it to the point where they have a bottom record. But it's possible they're kind of a mid-league team, which I know that's not what people want, but that's the sense that I get, is that they're going to try to stay competitive, and they might surprise people. There have been lots of Celtics teams in my lifetime that people expected to not really be competitive that ended up making a run. And I could see that happening based on just depending on how they move over the next few days here and who they retain. But there's a lot of guys that have a higher ceiling than I think people expect.
All right, we're going to give quick final thoughts about the Game 7 happening tonight. First, though, check out CLNS Media for all the live reaction to anything that's going to happen this week. We will have draft shows this week as well. This is the week where it all goes down. We've been spinning our wheels for a few weeks now. Fortunately, we've had the finals to keep us entertained, and that's going to continue tonight here. But subscribe to CLNS Media. Noah and I have been out talking to Jalen. We talked to Drew Peterson and Torrey Craig this week. I don't think any reporters on the beat have been busier in early June than us here at the Garden Report and CLNS Media. So check out all the stuff we've done this week. And there's a ton to come this week. More draft previews. I've just been talking to whoever will come on the show about the draft at this point. Noah's done a couple previews as well over there. So subscribe to that. Celtics All Access for segments, exclusive looks inside some of these events like the Jalen one we were at on Friday. I think that was sometime last week. Thursday. So go subscribe to those channels. Bruins Rinkside as well right now, talking about the coaching change over there and some of the changes that are going to happen this offseason on the hockey side of things. And then Patriots Press Pass with July here. Training camp's going to arrive within a month or so. So Patriots season is right around the corner. And they have all the angles covered of that team. Great stuff over there. So go subscribe to them. And we have a finals game tonight, last game of the season, though. It blows my mind. We stopped covering games a month and change ago. We could still be covering right now. And I'm sure we would be exhausted, ready to fall over, but also thrilled to cover a Game 7 like Indiana and Oklahoma City are going to play tonight, which there's no way I hope this is a great game. but there's almost no doubt in my mind that this is going to be a great game because all of these game 7s over the years have been awesome, including the last one, which was one of the greatest games ever. This series is excited. It has shocked us. It has surprised us. Pacers win game 1, look like they're in control. Thunder get 2 back, regain control. Pacers look like they're about to take control 3-1 in that game 4 and blow it. And then with the Thunder getting a pretty comfortable victory in game 5, head to Indiana in game 6 and just get blown off the court. And even with Haliburton hurt, looking like he can barely play in that game 5, he comes out and plays decent in game 6, and everybody else picks him up. Siakam's been awesome. This Thunder team's just a monster at home. I think they've only lost 8 games all year there. This series has tracked a little bit like the Denver series where Thunder drop game 1, go down 2-1 in the series, win a tough game 4, and then work their way back to winning a game 7 with a key player injured on the other side. So, I've wanted to jump on the Pacers bandwagon with you all year, Noah, going back to the second round. I haven't been able to do it. I did say after that game 3 that it looked like the Pacers were going to take this thing, and I give them every chance to tonight. I have no idea which way this is going to go. I don't even think it really even matters what I say for a prediction at this point because this series has just shifted a million times here, and I'm sure we're going to see some crazy stuff tonight. All I'll say is I think the Thunder are going to win. I don't think this line that we're looking at, which is like 7, 8, 9 points and pointing toward a Thunder runaway win, I don't think that's how this is going to go. I think the Thunder are going to have to withhold a Pacers rally. I think they're going to have to win a close game late. I think they're going to have to shake off what's really been the biggest concern with the Thunder all playoffs for me. Their inexperience has shown. I think some coaching mistakes have cost them at different points, not series, just spot games that have made it tougher for them along the way. And now here they are. Everyone expects them to win this game for the most part. Everyone expected them to win this series going in. And now they actually have to withhold the Pacers one more time, who I'd imagine are pretty loose going into this game. So I actually feel really good about the Pacers tonight going in, aside from that Haliburton injury, aside from the fact that it's Thunder home court. Yes, and so for those 2 reasons, I think the Thunder scrape by in this game.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even think there's a point to predicting game 7. I had game 7 heading into the series.
Just stay with it. You predicted it.
I'm definitely still staying with it. I'm definitely still staying with it. I mean, this is literally what I predicted from the jump. So it's definitely what I would say, but I think they, like, at this point, anything could happen. Anybody could go off. It's going to take, the reason that they win today, it's not going to be because Haliburton was better than SGA or SGA was better than Haliburton. It's going to be some random role player goes off or something crazy happens. I mean, we've seen this so many times in these moments. It's impossible to predict. So, I lean Pacers because I just forget basketball. I think this has just been a magical run for them, and I think it has to end with the title. At the same time, I also think that they are so comfortable in the clutch based on all of the moments they've had throughout this postseason. The Thunder have had some good moments, but some tough moments as well. The Pacers have been overwhelmingly really dominant in those situations. So I lean Pacers, but I'm mostly just looking forward to watching this game and to just seeing this play out. I feel so lucky to get to watch a game 7 that I don't have to do any work for. I can just enjoy it. So
you would have been working if it was the Celtics. Here we go. I texted you this before the series.
7.
And you said it. And you said it well. Can't come up with a basketball case. There's no.
I'll gloat if they win. I'll gloat if they win. I mean, honestly, I have a basketball case now. Like, I think that this Pacers team has just been super underrated for what they've been able to do defensively.
But the way they've won, especially the game 1, it's just, how do you predict that stuff?
I mean, Haliburton's already had 3 game winners before that. That's how. It's like they've shown us that they can do this. So I hope they can get it done because this is like one of those magical playoff runs that won't fully be appreciated unless they can do it. Whereas Thunder had a great regular season, they'll probably have an even better regular season next year or in that ballpark. Like, their future is so bright. They're only going to get better. Not that the Pacers won't. They're also a young team, but I just think the Pacers need to get it done. So we'll see. We'll see what happens here. Looking forward to it. Hopefully that can remain the focus today, and then tomorrow we can go back to the offseason and what all these trades mean.
I'm not going to jump on the Pacers bandwagon. I'm going to let you have it. And I was a big Thunder guy all year. I felt they were inevitable. Looking back on it, there's some reasons that probably wasn't the case. And if you want to play what if, they might have been more vulnerable to the Celtics, a fully loaded Celtics team, than I would have guessed. So we can play that game for years to come, but this is the finals. It's been great. It's probably been the best matchup you could have imagined here. The contrast of styles have been awesome. The games have been great. And now we can just sit back and enjoy Game 7 tonight. We will not have post-game coverage, but we'll be live a ton this week, I'm sure, to discuss and react to what happens. It's 8 o'clock. Enjoy. Thank you for tuning in here. And again, turn on those notifications because we could be live at any moment starting tomorrow for Celtics moves as the offseason begins. But first, we have a Game 7 in these finals. It's a great time. Thank you, Noah. Subscribe to You Got Boston. Check out our draft shows that we've done here on the Garden Report. We'll have another coming tomorrow. And we will see you on draft night at the latest. Wednesday night, NBA draft. Talk to you then.
No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're going to do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to feel that way. Let's
Yeah.
slide Al over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke hour early. We're not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke